I'm thinking a lot lately about the passage of time. You know, each one of us, no matter how old or young we may be, you know, we all have dreams. We all have stuff that we like to do or want to do, and we also have a lot of stuff that we have to do, and we may not want to do it, but we do it because we got to take care of other people and ourselves. And sometimes in the middle of all that mishmash of your dreams and your tasks, that's where God lives. It's right in the middle of all the stuff that makes up our daily lives. And then something happens like that shooting in New Zealand, which has got to be one of the most peaceful countries in the world. And then just our brothers and sisters like north of us in Wisconsin, the thaw, which is a good thing, and all of a sudden things thaw, the water has nowhere to go, and people are losing their houses by leaps and bounds. They wake up and they open the door, and before you know it, everything is damaged, and everything they've worked for seems to be gone. I even just think of the altar flowers today and the eternal light. A little baby is born, and they bring some flowers. And Heather, one of the kids who grew up here, she turns 34, and Connie turns 70, and Marianne Bach remembers her dad, but then as soon as she remembers her dad, she walks out the door to go take care of Vern. And I think of your dad and your husband Dan, a Vietnam vet, and his spirit is here today. And then there's Peggy's late husband Mike, who died at the age of 50-something, and he had a son who was killed in Iraq. And just on this one Sunday, all those names and spirits that are part of who we are today. So I get here early this morning, and now it's easy before the sunrise because it's kind of dark in the morning. And I pull in the parking lot. It's like a deer convention around here. I mean, there were on the front lawn, out by the sign, at least 10 deer. And 8 of them were laying down, relaxing. And I get out of my truck. I just want to take a picture, and they don't move. I'm like, hi, Don, where you been? How you doing? You know, welcome to my property. And then Harley and I drive up to the front door, and there on the lawn before Sandberg, there's 5 or 6 more deer, and on the Sandberg property, there have got to be 20 deer. And they're laying down. And Harley starts to run after him. He runs like I walk. And I think of the passage of time, and the deer just stay there saying, Harley, where you been? Good to see you again. Reminds me of the circle of life. It reminds me of there's so much that makes up this crazy world. So I plug in the coffee, I walk out to the gym, and I read the Sunday school bulletin board, which is so colorful. And then Lori has his message, and it says, we are all a piece of God's plan. I don't know. Sometimes my plans and whatever God's plans are, they don't mesh very well. But even though we make plans that may or may not come true, what's really important is that we live with purpose. That somehow, every day, we can do what we do with a sense of purpose. My plans may not come to fruition, but if I live with a sense of purpose each day, maybe I can make just one more person smile, and maybe that'll be enough. So the other day, my buddy calls me in the middle of the afternoon. He says, Don, my wife and I were at Papa Joe's. We're doing some arrangements for something, and we're sitting down. Would you like to, I'll buy you a drink. Don't ask twice. So anyway, so I get in my car, and I go down to Papa Joe's, and Alan's sitting there with a drink ready for me. And as soon as I walk in the door, the phone rings. And I answer my cell phone, and he says, Reverend Borling, this is Sergeant Meter. I'm from the state police. And I go, whoa. And he said, you're the chaplain of the police department in Orland, right? And I said, well, yeah. He said, well, we have a comrade in Colorado who was on duty. He went off the road to help somebody who was caught in a blizzard. A car also went off the road and hit him, and he died. And his family lives in Orland Park. And we would like you to accompany us to let the family know what happened. And I'm sitting there just with chills. I've done it before, but I don't like it at all. And I can't imagine a worse feeling. In fact, Mike Sullivan went through that. when his son died in Iraq, and he opens the door and there's people from the military to inform him that his son had died. Well, we knock on the door, and she comes to the door, and she sees a minister and 2 police, and she knows it's not good news. And we have to tell her about her son. In a moment of time, their world is turned upside down. You know, they're having coffee, watching a little TV, and all of a sudden, their world is upside down. And some of you know what that's like. Some of you sitting right here. You see that Officer Dan, who was only in his 30s, he had plans. Lots of plans. Got on the force in Colorado, and he had dreams. But even though his journey was short, he lived with purpose. And in that period of time, he had purpose, and now his family has purpose, and somehow, some way, they need to honor his memory. So often I wonder what my purpose is. Maybe you do too. Maybe there are times when you don't feel like you have a purpose. And maybe there are times, but like someone put an email in the other day, I saw it said like this: be the reason somebody smiles today. I like that. Maybe every day we can do something to somebody else to just make them smile. That's purpose. It's not big, but it's purpose. And every day when I walk up the sidewalk to unlock the door of the church, I ask myself the question, Don, what is the purpose of this church? Why are we here? And maybe you do the same thing. You walk into your insurance agency. What's the purpose of my business? You go to your nursing station at the hospital. What's the purpose of my day today? You're a butcher. You go to the meat market. Or maybe you're a string worker on an assembly line. Or you have another day of rehab. Every single day you open that door. What is my purpose? And we all have one. Buried sometimes, but we all have one. When I think of the church, I had 2 extremes the other day. I had the typical thing where a few years ago, I married a young couple, and then I didn't see him anymore. And then I baptized their first kid, and I saw him, and then I didn't see him anymore. And this weekend, I baptized our second kid, and the jury is still out. We'll see if they ever come back. On the other end of the extreme is somebody like Vern Bach, who for years and years has sat right there at the early service. And for 5 years, day after day after day, he battles the dreaded cancer. And Marianne is here every single Sunday, and Vern wants to be, but he just can't get going in the morning. You know, he's just dragged out. So when he can't come to church, the church has got to go to him. And the other day, like I do so often, I bring communion to Vern. I sit on his couch with him, and I kind of hold his hands, and we talk, and we share the Lord's Supper. And Vern bleeds All Saints. Oh my God. It's in his veins. It's in the very fiber of his being. And we bleed Vern Bach because he tells me if it wasn't for my beautiful wife and my family, and if it wasn't for this church, I wouldn't be here today. And somewhere in the middle are a lot of us. You see, for each person and for each family, our purpose is different and unique. And sometimes I think, like this morning, that even those crazy deer, they understand too. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed. It's on page 105.